Hello, everyone. Remember, this is not a news show. This is a platform. If you want your news, get it somewhere else. This is a political platform just for talking points. And today I wanted to discuss with you left-wing orthodoxy among the LGBT. Now, I'm a bisexual male. The last person I slept with was a man. And I honestly think I prefer male sex partners, generally speaking. But I do like women. Women are nice. I'm currently interested in a young woman. But I'm also a conservative, raised in a moderately conservative household, raised in a conservative family with very nice traditional values, generally speaking. But very open to the possibility that change may sometimes be needed. We were not hardliners. We are not solid red. I am not solid red. And I am okay with certain progressive ideas, but not all. I like Medicare for all. I'm a little leery of it, that it might be used as a vehicle for single-payer healthcare, so they can centralize healthcare, and then from centralizing healthcare to centralizing other parts of the market. Unless they centralize the market, you have socialism, which, due to centrality, is a system which creates numerous opportunities for authoritarians to grow their power. So that is something we should be careful of, but I think I like Medicare for all. If there is a private and public option, both available at the same time, then we'll be good, because then there will be no centrality to worry about. But this is what moderate conservatism is. It's being open to the opposite side and considering the possibility that maybe one of their ideas is good or what they want is right. And I'm okay with that. I mean, AOC lies more often than many people change the oil in their car, and Bernie Sanders moves the goalposts just about every week. A lot of socialist politicians are liars and emotional manipulators who use Hegelian dialect. So I would not vote for them even if they were the last politicians on Earth. I would rather see the system collapse first. Now, suffice to say, as a moderate conservative, I largely prefer American cultural identity, Western values, fiscal conservatism, i.e. not spending any more money than we need to spend, and I want politicians who have some monicum of real moral value, which is definitely not the socialist candidates. The Republicans are somewhat more principled. Somewhat. I really like Rand Paul. I really like Marco Rubio. And I fell for the oldest trick in the book. I mistook Marco Rubio's meekness for being pathetic. That is a mistake so many people make in modern society, or society in general, really, is you see someone's meekness and you assume that means, oh, you know, meek rhymes with weak. You must be pathetic, a beta male. Like, no. He's just very meek and tame. But when he wants to roar like a lion, oh boy can he. There's plenty of principled Republicans, although Mitch the Bitch McConnell is certainly not one of them. I call him that for a very specific reason. That being, Mitch McConnell is pathetic. He bends the knee, and he frequently, to the Democrats, and frequently mentions a problem, but then doesn't provide a solution. That is not okay. That is what I am against. That is why this platform exists. That was the initial reason why I decided to build this platform, was because of conservatives mentioning problems and not providing solutions. We need a strong counter-narrative against the left, and I'm trying to create that, which is why I want to talk about today's topic. Now, queer culture, I don't know the full history of it, but I do know that a lot of the BDSM, public sex, simulated sex acts in public and other things is basically rebellion against cultural norms, because since the heterosexual dominated culture rejected the LGBT therefore rejected the culture. And that is why the rebellion exists, and that is what it is largely rooted in, is a kind of rebellion. An inverse of everything normal, a perversion. But the thing is, there's these people that believe that queer culture and being LGBT are the same thing. And most of those are left-wing. The right-wingers who believe that think that you can take the LGBT out of the queer, but you can't take the queer out of them. I disagree. I am not queer. I refuse to be called queer. I am a white, conservative, working-class man. I dress normal. I act normal. Well, ish. I am a little strange. I am very weird, actually. But as far as my general dress, demeanor, and sexual expression, the closest thing I get to queer is that if I happen to be in the process of dating men, I like to wear my hair long, down to a ponytail. I actually get a lot of guys who hit on me when I wear my hair like that. But if I'm interested in women, I keep it short. Because it tends to balance out and even out. That's my phone. But yeah, that's how I signal my bisexual seeking man status, is with long hair and a ponytail. And it gets very curly and ridiculous. There's plenty of pictures of me with my hair like that. It actually looks really nice. I look like a 13th century colonist or something. Yeah, all I need's like the Monty Python, or not Monty Python, Blackadder the Third coat, and I look like one of those guys from like the Revolutionary War period. It's actually very tasteful. But the thing is, within queer culture, within among the LGBT, there is a definite presence of left-wing orthodoxy. The left boxes people in when they claim to support them. Just like ask many black conservatives, if you don't conform to the arbitrary way they say black people should think and act, then they're an Uncle Tom and a coon conservative and whatever else. You know, all these sorts of pejoratives. They trap you in a box, and if you try to get out of the box, they insult you and try to make you feel miserable. They do the same thing to LGBT people. If gay men are out of that box, they say, "Oh, you must hate yourself. You wish you were straight." If you're bisexual, they say, "Oh, you're not a real bisexual. You're actually heterosexual. You're faking it." You know, they say all kinds of things if you come out of the box. There was a famous cross-dresser, drag queen named Miss MAGA, who was a Trump supporter, and he put it out quite plainly as a gay man that they literally told him that he was exiled to his face. They said, "You're exiled. You're no longer one of us." Who are you to make that decision? Who gave you the power to do that? Nobody. That's who. Nobody gave you that power. You are expressing prejudice against a conservative. Because that is what you become when you become a leftist. You have prejudice against conservatives. And you may even have prejudice against white people. But you'll definitely, undeniably, as a leftist, have prejudice against conservatives. There's no way around that. I've seen it too much. It is too real. It happens. This is what happens. They want orthodoxy. Anything they claim to support, that they claim ownership of, it is theirs, and you have to stay in your box. I will not allow anyone to put me in a box because of my bisexuality. I will not allow it. Not even. Fuck your box. I will light it on fire and I will burn it to the ground. Now, the problem with this leftist orthodoxy is when LGBT people get sucked into it and they're really believing it, they become leftists, they're being harmed by this ideology and they don't even realize it. They see the harm, but for some reason there's some blockage in their cognition where they're unable to see the cause of the harm. They can't see the fact that what they're being hurt by ultimately is the left-wing orthodoxy itself, which has a tendency to support a certain group for a little while and then just kind of move on. First it was gays, then they moved on. Then it was lesbians, and they moved on. When they moved on from the gays, gay men were just kind of left hanging because they still needed support. Then lesbians were left hanging because they still needed support. And bisexuals, our period of support was the briefest of all. It was like, boop! Like, in comparison, it's like 5 seconds to 5 minutes. Gay men is 5 minutes, lesbians is 3 minutes, bisexual is 5 seconds. And then transgenderism is basically forever. Because it fits neatly into their far left gender theory, which denies biological sex having any real relevance, and it's all relative, and there's no physical reality, and it's all just expression and identity, and there is no sex. There is no male and female. Or maybe there is male and female, and it's just relative. Transgenderism fits neatly into that category. And what I understand of transgenderism is it all started with this guy who tried to, a psychologist, or psychoanalyst, I'll make that distinction, psychoanalyst, who basically tried to transition a 12-year-old boy who was struggling with being a boy who wasn't particularly masculine. He was not a masculine boy. He was sort of like Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Because Aang is a 12-year-old in that show. He's a 12-year-old boy, but he's not a particularly masculine boy. He's actually quite feminine. He does all sorts of girly shit. And yet, weirdly enough, does he not end up getting with Katara? Yes, he does. He forms that relationship, has a bunch of kids with her. But he's not really the most masculine guy ever. Not even. And this kid was not the most masculine boy ever. He was an Aang type. And the psychoanalyst is like, well, you must secretly be sort of like a girl on the inside. So maybe you want to transition your body to match? And no doubt he used a lot of leading questions, just like how the Satanic Panic got started. This is like the Lawrence Pasder of gender, this guy. I can't remember his name at the moment. But you can look into that. And he wanted to... I'll probably do a video on it in the future. I'll research into it and I'll put that out there so you can see that. But that's sort of how it started. And it all just fits in perfectly with the moral and world relativism of the left. Nothing is set in stone. There's nothing objective. It's all relative. And you're silly for thinking otherwise. Ha ha, silly conservative. And it's all just perfect for them. It's all in that little box. And they stick you in that box, and you can be left hanging. And the problem with the transgenders being put ahead of everyone else is that transgender women who retain their attraction to the opposite sex from when they were biologically male, because they are biologically male, are now calling themselves lesbians, even though they have a penis and they are physically a man, but they think they're a woman. That's a mental illness, and they think they're a lesbian. And that is actually harming lesbian representation, because it skews the lines of the definition, and it gives these men permission to invade lesbian and feminist spaces, which skews the conversation invariably in the direction of that loud minority, stealing and hijacking the narrative. I think gay men are honestly the LGBT people that are the best off overall, because mainstream acceptance of gay men is actually still fairly okay. Most people don't care. Lots of people, even some conservatives, are okay with gays and think, okay, maybe you can go and get married. Just stay away from my heterosexism. Just stay away. Don't demand extra rights, only equal rights. Sometimes they might say, oh, marriage is between one man and one woman, but maybe if you just sort of have a different kind of marriage, gays have it better than the rest of us. They really do. They don't have to worry about 63% of straight women not wanting to date you because they think you'll give them AIDS. That is a problem exclusive to bisexual males. And what's interesting, that if you want to look at that in an intersectional worldview, that problem exists because they are bisexual and male. So perhaps men are really oppressed, and they just don't know it. See? That's the funny thing about it. If you're consistent and apply it consistently, then you have to include more people than are currently included. And they don't want to do that because that's outside of the left-wing orthodoxy. Now, what's interesting further about this is uh, bisexual women are actually more accepted too. Bisexual men are actually the highest rate of neglect at the moment. Many people believe that we are illegitimate and we do not exist. And that is fucking bullshit. I can live with that as long as I can find either a sexual or romantic partner. That's fine. That's where I draw the line. As long as I can find a partner, I am okay. Think what you want. You'll probably think you're an idiot for thinking it, but I am not the thought police. I am not going to decide what you think for yourself. Think for yourself. It's one of my favorite Beatles songs, actually. Do what you want to do. Go where you're going to. Think for yourself, because I'm not going to be there with you. Think for yourself. Don't let other people decide for you. I'm not going to decide for you. No one else should. No one has that right. But the transgender thing introduces pansexuals and other things that make bisexuality extremely confusing. So not only do I get less recognition as being a legitimate, valid sexuality, I also get riddled with people who think that there's some weird divide between bi and pan and omni, which is really all just the same thing because there's only two sexes, sorry. And fucking, like, how is... I'm losing my train of thought here a little bit. Hold on a sec. Well, it just makes the whole issue very, very confusing. If a woman tries to transition to a man, they claim they're really a man, but they're still attracted to women. They're still attracted to men. They would say they were gay. No, you're just a woman with a mental illness trying to emulate a man. So I think bisexuals actually come out on the end of this pretty well, because if we transitioned, it wouldn't necessarily change, but it still makes the issue with pansexuality so confusing. Now, I want to talk to you about this group in England called LGBT Alliance. This is an alliance modeled after the LGBT Alliance model that rejects the T and focuses on lesbian, gays, and bisexuals and encourages them to deal with their issues separately because they are separate issues. It's not a big tent. You're not fucking Reagan. There's not actually enough room for everyone. But instead, we should have lots of little tents that are not at war with each other and can just agree to disagree. The tents agree to disagree and do not fight. That's, I think, what they're saying, and I think there should be an American version of LGBT Alliance. Who knows? Maybe I can start it. I don't know. I would certainly like it to be started here. I would like that messaging to be out there. I think that we should be looking at transgenderism scientifically instead of accepting it at the face value. And scientifically, transgender ideology does not hold up. Because chromosomes, XX and XY, are a thing. There's even the rare man who is a double Y. And the scientific theory currently existing that the rare double Y man is very high testosterone, very muscular, extremely aggressive, and almost entirely lacking in any sort of feminine traits at all. He's just completely 100% masculine, and typically depicted in media as a raging, angry rage monster, or a prison rapist. And who knows? I've never met a guy who is YY. They do exist. They're out there. I've never met one, so I don't know. I have no idea what they're like. I only know what the media says, and I don't trust that worth a shit. But yeah, there is a physical reality, and they need to get over that. It's the truth. The relativism needs to stop. It's not the same thing. Sexual orientation and gender are very different. Gender is a theory. It is not a real object. It is not observable. It is kind of observable in psychology. And I think that the idea of gender is really just kind of the psychological makeup of a man and a woman. Men are like this, women are like this. And that's all it ever was. All it is. Whereas sexual orientation is an entirely separate issue, and we need to just not have that idiotic big tent. So yeah. With that being said, this is how the left-wing orthodoxy has effectively fucked up the LGBT, but good. And the only way to avoid that issue is to restructure the LGBT construct. And it is a construct. Communities are constructs, albeit they arrive mostly organically, because community is a compound word initially of common unity. Go to etymologyonline.net. I think it's .net. Maybe it's .com. Anyway, go to etymology. That's ETYMOLOGY online, and type in the word community, and you will get that exact root. It is common unity. And this common unity is because we are unified by what we have in common. The only thing LGB has in common is that we're not straight. We should have our own separate communities that just agree to disagree and not be at war with each other. And have it be at that. And only unite when we have something in common. And when we have something that's not in common, we can just agree to disagree and be nonviolent with each other. But that's how we need to restructure. We need to be unified in that we're not straight. We need to be unified that we're not anything like transgender. That's a separate issue entirely. And we need to have a bunch of little adjacent tents that agree to disagree, but always supporting each other in some way when we have a common fight. We do not support each other in separate fights because we should mind our own business, because when we butt into a problem that's not ours and we don't understand it, we actually end up making the situation worse in our ignorance. Imagine if lesbians tried to support bi men in the fight to get straight women to not think we're going to give them AIDS. Do lesbians even understand that situation? They may very well not. And therefore, in their ignorance, they should mind their own business and focus their activism on things they do understand. This is something they do not understand. Well, thank you so much for listening to this wonderful heathen bastard that I am. I may eventually turn this video platform into a podcast. Ooh, what if we made a BitChute exclusive podcast? Now that's a cool idea. Plus, you wouldn't have to see my horrible, ugly face, and I wouldn't have to drape a fitted sheet over my sink. But anyway, that's for production's sake. It just makes the whole thing look a little nicer. I normally fold it in like this, so you don't really see the fitted sheet part, so it just looks like a cloth. Anyway, thank you for listening. Tschüss. Peace.